Every time Nintendo announces new hardware, the internet collectively loses its mind. Twitter turns into a war zone, YouTube thumbnails start screaming in all caps, and suddenly everyone is either declaring a new console is the future of gaming, or the death of physical media as we know it. And yet, despite being a lifelong Nintendo fan, I'm sitting here calmly saying something that might not be super surprising to you guys, but I don't really care about the Nintendo Switch 2. Yet. And before anybody grabs their pitchforks, let me be clear, this isn't really coming from a Nintendo hater. If anything, it's coming from someone who has spent most of their life letting Nintendo dictate which consoles they buy and when. I love Pokémon, Splatoon, Smash Bros, and a handful of other Nintendo franchises very deeply, but at the same time, I'm also extremely picky with which ones I actually give a crap about. For example, I've only ever truly cared about one Legend of Zelda game. Can you guess what it was? It's Legend of Zelda Oracle of Ages for the Game Boy Color. And I love Mario as a character, but I kind of couldn't care less about Mario Party or Mario Kart. The platformers, yeah, absolutely, those are my jam. But the party games, it's kind of a hard pass. So when I say I'm holding out on the Switch 2, it's not because I think it'll be bad hardware or because Nintendo's washed. It's because for me, there's currently no compelling reason to jump in right now, especially at launch. I still kind of consider us in this launch period, and honestly, history has proven that my approach kind of works. So I think this is where a lot of discourse around consoles goes wrong, because I feel like most people assume that if you like a company, you should automatically want everything they put out, but that's never really been how I've interacted with games. Like, I don't buy consoles just to own them. I buy consoles because either a specific game or a franchise kind of forces my hand to buy the console. And that's been my pattern for about as long as I can remember, like just kind of going back down memory lane. I got a GameCube as a kid because I wanted to play Super Smash Bros. Melee. I got a PlayStation 2 specifically for Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi. I got a Wii for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I got a PS3 just to play Tales of Grace's F because that was the first Tales of game to be exclusive on the PS3. Picked up a Wii U for Smash 4. I got a PS4 for Tales of Zestiria, and I bought a Nintendo Switch just for Splatoon 2. So there's a very obvious trend here. Like, I don't chase hardware. Hardware kind of chases me when one of my favorite franchises decides that it lives on there now. I'm kind of like a creature of stasis. Like, I will happily sit with the console I already own until something comes along that makes staying put kind of impossible. And every single time I've done this, it's kind of worked out in my favor. And like, one of my core gaming philosophies is never buy a console at launch. The launch models are always usually the worst versions of that system. They're super expensive, probably louder, less efficient, and often, they're missing features that eventually get added later. And it's not even like a Nintendo specific thing. That's kind of just how hardware cycles work. So by holding out on consoles, you usually get better hardware revisions, more color options or special editions, a stronger game library, better bundle deals, and sometimes you get straight up cheaper prices. And two anecdotal examples really kind of cement this mindset for me. First was for the PS5. I waited. I didn't really stress over the restocks or scalpers, like all that crazy stuff that was going on that holiday season when nobody could find a PS5. Like, I did not care about that whatsoever. But when Dragon Ball Sparking Zero finally dropped, I knew I had to, so I grabbed a refurbished PS5 for significantly cheaper than launch price. Same console, same games, way less money, and it's still going strong to this day. And second, and this one kind of matters a little bit more, was the Nintendo 3DS XL. So holding out on the Nintendo 3DS XL was actually, I feel like, one of the smartest gaming decisions I've ever made. At the time, I already had a perfectly working DS Lite, I believe, so there was really no need to upgrade. But then, Pokemon X and Y were announced, and Nintendo dropped that gorgeous Pokemon themed 3DS XL special edition. There was two versions. There was the red and the blue one, the Xerneas and Yveltal one. And I remember at the time when that game came out, I had a super obsession with black and red just as a color scheme. So even though I liked Xerneas more as a Pokemon because I really liked fairy types, I still picked up the red Yveltal 3DS XL, and that thing looks so sick. That's one of my favorite consoles and honestly one of my favorite special editions of all time. And that was kind of everything that I wanted. It's a custom design, it's got the Pokemon branding, and it kind of felt personal, like it was made specifically for the fans of the franchise. And kind of like, because, you know, it felt like because I waited, I didn't really just end up with like just a console. It was personal. It was like my console because I didn't know anybody around that had a special edition 3DS. Yo, quick break. If you're enjoying the video, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel out. I'm new. I'm trying to get this pumping. All right, let's get back to it. That experience permanently rewired kind of how I approached Nintendo hardware, because ever since then, I've kind of been chasing that same feeling, like that moment where a console stops being generic and starts feeling like it's mine personally, like it's part of me, or at least represents things I actually care about, which kind of brings me back to the Nintendo Switch 2. Right now, there is genuinely nothing compelling me to buy a Switch 2 at launch. The two franchises, honestly, that matter the most to me from Nintendo, like being Pokemon and Splatoon and arguably Smash, they're all fully playable on the original Switch right now. My current system works perfectly fine. It does everything I need it to do. So why would I drop hundreds of dollars just to be early? And on top of that, there's that whole keycard situation, which I honestly can't ignore. I mean, I value physical media. I like owning my games, and I like knowing that if servers shut down or policies change, you know, I still have something tangible. I mean, we just saw Nintendo just shut down the eShop, the Nintendo DS eShop a couple years ago, right? So it's coming. It might not be now, but give it another 10, 15 years, they're going to shut down the Nintendo Switch eShop, and then we're all going to be ass out of games and not going to be able to play all the games we have. So the move towards keycards feels very anti-consumer in a way that rubs me the wrong way, and it makes me even less eager to jump in immediately, even though I know I will eventually, like, let's be honest here. But combine that with my general never buy at launch rule, and yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2 is kind of just a wait and see situation for me. But here's the thing though, I don't think I'll be waiting that long. I specifically wanted to get this conversation out before Pokemon Day 2026 because I truly believe that's going to be when everything changes. You know, we're less than a month away, and if my predictions are right, we're about to see the announcement of Pokemon Generation 10. I mean, if you look at Pokemon and how they've moved in the past, it's all but guaranteed. The Gen 9 cycle is pretty much at its end, so this is about to be the announcement of Generation 10, something we've joked about on the playground for years. When Gen 2 and 3 were coming out, we were like, what if they got up to Gen 10? Well, here we are, folks. But I strongly believe, and you heard it here first, that either alongside the Gen 10 reveal or shortly after, Nintendo's going to announce a Switch 2 special edition. And I don't mean like a lazy bundle where they just take a download code and toss it in the box like what they did with the Mario Kart and Pokemon's Legends ZA one. I'm talking about like a fully customized console with special colors, a themed dock, unique Joy-Cons, like the whole deal, the works. Like something closer to what they did with the Scarlet and Violet Switch. But this time the timing will actually make more sense. The problem I had with the Scarlet and Violet special edition was that it came out near the tail end of the Switch's life cycle, and I loved it. Like, I kind of wanted to get it, but I low-key just couldn't justify buying it when my system still worked perfectly. And even if I had bought it, honestly, it came out so late in the life cycle that about a year or two later, now we have the Switch 2. So it's like, it almost would have been pointless to get the Switch 1 just for bragging rights, just kind of put it on a shelf somewhere and it looks good for the special edition. But for this case, with the Switch 2 still kind of early in its life cycle, I think Nintendo is in a much better position to drop a Pokemon themed system that people might actually stick with for years. And if they do that, that's going to be when I fold. Now, Pokemon is kind of like the big one for me, but it's not really the only possibility. Like, if Nintendo doesn't do a Gen 10 Pokemon Switch 2, although I'd be genuinely shocked if they didn't, I'm still holding out hope for either a Splatoon or a Smash Bros. Special edition. Splatoon especially feels like a franchise Nintendo just loves to use as like a visual showcase. It's one of their IPs that they're really pushing, and you know, it's got the colors, the style, the personality, like all that is just perfect for a custom console design to be unique and vibrant and awesome looking. And a Splatoon themed Switch 2 would definitely get my attention if they don't do a Pokemon one. Smash Bros. I feel like is a longer shot unless they come out with Smash 6, but if they ever do decide to kind of go in on a Smash one, that would also be hard to ignore. So the point is, like, I'm not anti-Switch 2. I'm kind of just waiting for my version of it, and I'm kind of waiting for it to make sense, like the right moment. And at the end of the day, holding out on the Nintendo Switch 2 isn't really about being stubborn or contrarian. For me personally, it's kind of just knowing how I engage with games and hardware. Like, I've always waited until a console gives me a reason to buy it, and historically that patience has kind of paid off every single time. And as of right now, I already have a console that plays all the games I care about. I'm not super sold on the keycard approach, and I have a strong hunch that something much more compelling, like a Pokémon Gen 10 Switch 2 Special Edition, or at least a Splatoon one, is right around the corner. So yeah, like, do I care about the Switch 2? Like, not really, not this moment, I really don't. But when Nintendo finally drops that one system that feels like it was specifically made for me, like a special edition, yeah, history says I'll be there, wallet in hand. And that's the end of today's ramble. If you enjoyed the video and you're cool with hearing me go on about other random topics, mostly nerd related, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you for hanging out with me. See you next time.